So I'm going to show the hearing to my students in class. You know, this is history in the making. This is something that they will remember when they are in their 80s and their 90s, looking back at the span of the 21st century and remembering what they saw here today. And as much as I'd like to think that, you know, the class I was planning to teach about free speech in public schools would have been equally memorable, the reality is that this is really something quite historic.
I think you could see it, I mean, today you could see it a little bit this morning in terms of even their approach of the committee itself, their approach towards whether they decide to open up an investigation again, the decision to whether they want to bring in additional witnesses, how they prejudged their approach to the witness, for example. You know, a number of the senators on the Judiciary Committee, for example, had come out prior to ever listening to the witness, making it very clear that they didn't necessarily care what the witness necessarily had to say. And so I think that's particularly problematic.
He's trying to sort of shift the lens from the victim being Dr. Ford to the victim being Brett Kavanaugh. And I think time will tell whether that sort of tactic works, but I do think he's trying to emphasize the human cost to him. It's a rare strategy that you'll see. Clarence Thomas in his confirmation hearings did refer to him being subject to what he called a high-tech lynching, and he tried to show that he was a victim of the process, and I think that Brett Kavanaugh is trying to show that he's a victim here.
To a certain extent understood Judge Kavanaugh's level of anger. I mean, it was a very different approach than his earlier approaches, but one of the things that it made me wonder about is whether there had been a woman testifying in front of the Senate, whether she would have ever been allowed publicly to express that level of anger. If a woman had so rudely interrupted a senator, whether that would be considered acceptable or whether we would deem her unfit to be a member of the Supreme Court.
Institutionally, none of the justices can be happy right now. Even conservatives who agree with Brett Kavanaugh on the direction of the law, none of them like this idea that every single time moving forward they decide a case that involves an issue of women's rights or sexual discrimination, or discrimination at all. None of them are going to be happy that all the media coverage is going to be, you know, is this man who's been accused very credibly of these horrible incidents, does that undermine what the Supreme Court has to say?
There's been a mood today, it's hard to explain, but there's been a mood that this is about something bigger, and obviously not just about the balance of conservatism and liberalism on the court, but the very integrity of the court. And it feels personal. And a lot of our discussions in class are about the system. In 1L, we're learning about the judicial system, the checks and balances of the court, very basic questions about how the system was designed. Also, it's hard to escape the political side of things. It's very politicized. The Republicans and the Democrats both have stake in the game, and it's hard to look away from that, because if you're rooting for one team, you do feel a little biased.
To me, the hearings reveal just how dysfunctional our political process is, and how we as a nation need to think carefully about what we can do to move to a time when people could have legitimate disagreements, where people could have differences of opinion, where people could disagree but be respectful. And at this point in time, it seems to me we're going to get less as opposed to more done, given the current climate in American politics.